be talking full spoilers for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Me and Antonio's here have both had a chance to check it out, and we'll be giving our spoiler-filled thoughts. So if you haven't seen the movie, it's all good. Just go ahead and log off. For those who may join in later or after this video, go watch the movie and then come back and let's talk some spoilers. So right out of the gate, just for anyone who may or may not be watching this that didn't see my short, I love this movie. I think it is another win for Marvel, much needed win for Marvel, I might add. I think it has a lot of humor, heart, just action is some of the best we've ever gotten in a Spider-Man movie. But, it's Destin Daniel Cretton, the guy that did Shang-Chi. That doesn't come as a surprise. And, just overall, I love the feel of New York. Oh, did we lose Antonio's? Oh, there you are. But yeah, just the overall feel of New York City, the way that it felt alive and it felt like a lived-in world. Just overall, great film. But I want to give you a chance, Antonio. Just give us your quick thoughts on what you thought of Spider-Man: Brand New Day.
Yeah, so my overall review of it is I think it's one of the strongest Spider-Man movies we've gotten, mostly because the action sequence is really good, the character development of Peter Parker finally being who he's like in the comic books, this broke kid in New York, struggling to get by while helping the citizens in New York. And I love the one thing I want to give just a shout out to specifically is the Punisher Spider-Man chemistry in this movie. I think it was excellent. I was actually surprised at how well it worked. I was a little I want to say like a little cautious about it because I wasn't sure how they're gonna put Punisher in a PG-13 movie, and they did a really good job with it. So yeah, it felt like I turned on that old classic Spider-Man TV show I watched as a kid, and it was just live action. So it was a huge blast.
Yeah, and I'd agree with you. I've heard you're not the first or probably the last person I've heard say that it really felt like some person, I think one person said it felt like 3 or 4 episodes of the Spider-Man 90s animated show stitched together. He didn't mean that negatively, but I definitely see what, you guys are saying. It really just it embraced everything that works about Spider-Man. Like I think there's a reason why he is one of the most enduring characters in all of fiction. I mean, right up there with Frodo, Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter. It's just, a very relatable story of a young adult carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, trying to make ends meet. Like, it's just universally beloved character that everyone can relate to. But yeah, something I want to add, and I don't know if I think we may have touched on this a little bit in our, virtual interactions before this live stream, but this movie kind of reminded me of the Superman film from last year. And I say that
Yes.
because a lot of these characters, yeah, it like the Punisher, the Hulk, Jean Grey. We'll go ahead. I didn't want to say it, but then I remembered it was a spoiler review. But yeah, all of these characters, like a big issue people have had with the MCU is, like, okay, well, the like for example the Thunderbolts movie last year, spoiler alert for that movie if you haven't seen it, where Sentry becomes the Void, and all these people are getting sucked in New
Mhm.
York City, and everyone's like, well, where's Spider-Man or the other Avengers? This movie kind of has that same premise where it's like, are there other Marvel characters? And I love that the first interaction between Spider-Man and the Punisher is just him, the Punisher literally running into Spider-Man, and it's just like, oh, hey, Frank, and I just thought that was a great moment. Again, it reminded me of Superman from last year, where it's just all these characters interacting. The world just felt so alive and breathed in. So I want to know kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I actually I agree. It reminds me a lot like the Superman movie, but I'm gonna take it a step further because with the Superman movie, I thought they did a great job from adapting it from like a comic book into a movie, but I thought the actual plot and such was very bland. So I think what Spider-Man did is it did what Superman did, but it did it better because I feel like the story is much more compelling and the character development is better written than Superman was. I know you love Superman. I enjoyed Superman, but I was not as high on Superman as most people were. So I feel like Spider-Man Brand New Day is what I thought Superman was going to be. So I agree that they're both very similar, but I think Spider-Man just did it better.
Honestly, I would give that to you. And Giuseppe said in the comments, Spider-Man did everything Superman wanted to do, but better in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I mean,
Same.
yeah. As somebody that loved the Superman movie, yeah, I'll agree. I think this movie does in a lot of ways some things better that Superman of last year tried to do. So yeah, I definitely will agree with you guys on that, at least in, certain aspects, such as the way the characters interact with one another. And then moving on to the actual side characters themselves, we obviously have to talk about, all these characters. I know a big question
Yeah.
me as well as a lot of other people had going in is, will this feel overstuffed? And I would say yes, but also no. Like, and I'll get to why in just a second, and you can give me your thoughts on that as well. But like, I feel like, for example, with the Punisher, like it feels very natural. It's like, oh, the
Mhm.
Punisher and Spider-Man both happen to be going after this one thing, and then it kind of leads to these interactions. I think it hints, if I'm not mistaken, that they've kind of met each other outside of what we see in this movie. So I like that
Staten
as well. I
Island.
like that, yeah, Staten Island. Yeah, they do reference that. Yeah, and just, overall, I mean, just the way and kind of what you mentioned too, the banter between Frank Castle and Peter Parker, just really great. It was like, they could have really kind of felt like they were retreading a lot of the storyline with Punisher and Daredevil in season two, with Spider-Man not wanting to kill and the Punisher being like, this is the only way. And they do touch on that, but I felt like they found a really good way, and maybe it was the writing. I'm not really sure how to pinpoint it exactly, but it felt a lot different. But you could also see the echo, so I thought that was really well done. But
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think the one thing that I say is I think they added too many villains, but they didn't add too many heroes. So like the Punisher Spider-Man chemistry, I agree, it works 100%. I've heard people online, they try to criticize why is Punisher acting like this with Spider-Man, but not with Daredevil. And I think the answer is pretty simple. It's called Spider-Man. He knows Spider-Man's just a kid, so he is easier on him than he would be with Daredevil, who and when they first met each other, they hated each other. Where Spider-Man, I think they had common respect when they first met. But another thing too is people also I've heard some people are talking about how they wished Hulk was in it more. I agree, but at the same time, I think the more I thought about it, the more I realized I think the Hulk was to represent what Spider-Man was struggling with in the movie. I think the Hulk wasn't meant to be an actual character, but more of like a symbol of a reflection of what can happen to Spider-Man if he doesn't deal with the situation mentally and everything. So so the Hulk scene amazing. I'm so happy. Real Hulk's back. The Professor Hulk is hopefully gone for good. I hope they stick with the real Hulk. But yeah, I think some of the complaints I've heard I think the complaints they have for the heroes are not good, but the complaints for the villains saying like having like all those villains there for like 2 seconds on screen and then gone. I think I agree that that was a little too much. But when it came to the heroes, I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, I would agree with you to that to a certain point. I think I'm glad you mentioned the Hulk because that was going to be my next character. I like I didn't really think of him. You brought up a great point with him kind of being a reflection of what Peter Parker is struggling with and kind of what we're seeing throughout this character journey of Peter Parker and this kind of darker side that's coming out. And I like kind of what you said. I didn't really think about that. And I've seen this movie twice now. But yeah, I mean, just seeing the way that, out of all movies, this is the one where he kind of becomes the rageful Hulk that we know and love. And I think that was done really well. But I will say, I do think of all these characters like Jean Grey, Punisher, Hulk, I actually think the Hulk is probably the one character that you probably could have like done away with and the movie would have felt a little less overstuffed. But at the same time, I'm saying that, with somebody who, when I watched this movie for the second time, one of the scenes I was looking forward to the most was the Spider-Man and Punisher versus Hulk fight scene. So like, the film critic in me wants to be like, oh, it's maybe a little too much to put the Hulk in it, but at the same time, the fan in me loved it, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. So, I guess take that
Yeah.
what you will. But yeah, I guess with Jean Grey, I'm very curious to know your thoughts on this because I think I speak for both of us when I say we all expected Sadie Sink to be Jean Grey. They were hamming it up too much. But what did you think about
Yeah.
her kind of way she was in the film, like way she was presented? I guess.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job, but the one thing I've always realized is I don't have the biggest knowledge of X-Men comic books, but I feel like we never really gotten Jean Grey this young before she like went to the X-Men. I think it's really cool how they're using her power the way they used it, like how she's in the beginning. Again, this is a spoiler review. How in the beginning she's not as powerful, but then when she finally unleashes her power, you start seeing more of what she can do. I think Sadie Sink is perfect for Jean Grey. I think they did really good with the casting. And another thing, I think in the end of the movie, like another spoiler, people haven't seen it. I think she's going to the MCU's X-Men mansion in the end. So, but I think when it comes to the
Oh,
character
yeah.
itself, I think they did a good job with it. I don't really have many complaints with her character because some people do complain how like how can you see her as a good guy when she was gonna like kill a bunch of people. And at the same time, if you know Jean Grey, she has like an alter ego, and it's hard for her to control her powers. So for me, I didn't really have as much of an issue of the fact that people were complaining about that with Jean Grey. I have other complaints about villains in the movie, but when it came to Jean Grey's character, that I didn't agree with the criticisms they had about that.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way you did. First of all, I think Sadie Sink does a great job playing Jean Grey. It's definitely a much different portrayal that I noticed. Like, I know some people. It was a good friend of mine actually went and saw this movie a couple days before I did, and he walked away, enjoyed the movie for the most part. But one of his issues was the way in which they portrayed Jean Grey because it felt like such a departure from the comic book. But to that, I would say, first of all, the MCU has always kind of revamped certain characters. And
Right.
second of all, I actually don't mind it because, this is supposed to be a younger, bit more reckless version of Jean Grey. She doesn't have the guidance of Professor Xavier, Magneto, etc. We don't even know if these characters fully exist in the MCU yet. I think they do because, like you said, I really think she was traveling to the X Mansion at the end of that movie. But, I think overall that this was just meant to be kind of a more, delinquent kind of portrayal of Jean Grey, someone who is lost, someone who doesn't have anybody. And they make that very clear in the movie. And kind of to that point as well, I have heard some people say that the ending felt very similar to Thunderbolts, and that,
Yeah.
it's like the guy, or, the main character is essentially, instead of a big grandiose battle sequence, it's the main character trying to talk down the villain. We kind of also got that in Captain America Brave New World as well. So I see why it felt redundant, but to me, I think it was a really good way to further Peter's journey because what we've seen in all three of the original Tom Holland trilogies is a Peter Parker who he's constantly being mentored, be it by Iron Man or even kind of with Doctor Strange in No Way Home. Here, we're seeing a Peter Parker that quite literally is coming into his own. He's taking the experience he learned from Aunt May, from Iron Man, and he's using that to basically become the mentor to Jean Grey and pass along, kind of because even in No Way Home, as we know, Peter Parker, when Aunt May died, he was very rageful. He wanted that revenge. And so I love that he's essentially passing along the same lessons that he learned in that last trilogy to Jean
Right.
Grey. So I definitely see what people mean by, oh, it seems a little derivative and repetitive to other more recent Marvel films, again, like Thunderbolts. But for me, I just think it was a great way to really showcase how far Peter has come and kind
Yeah.
of a full circle moment in a way. But what do you
Yeah.
think about that?
I think the problem I have with the movie actually is that there's no big bad villain, and I think my reasoning for that is when you look back at all the Tom Holland movies, all the villains are either from a different universe, like in No Way Home, or they have some kind of grudge against Tony Stark. So like Vulture, the damage control was from Tony Stark, and so he didn't like that, so he stole some of the stuff and used it to rob him. Mysterio didn't like Tony Stark, so he got like fired from him, so he wanted to steal his tech to control things. Then, like I said, No Way Home, it's all the multiverse villains. So in this movie, I kind of was hoping to Tom Holland had his own villain that began with him. I know we kind of got the Scorpion, but like he was like a one and done kind of villain. Not they didn't really make him feel like an actual big villain. So that's why a part of me was hoping that they were gonna add some type of villain. I had one theory where I thought maybe instead of the Hulk in the movie, they could have done Dr. Connors with the lizard, and he could have been the one that actually is the one with spoiler alert, Jean Grey's sister. He's the one that's actually with it, not damage control. I think they could have done something like that to give Spider-Man an actual villain, or even better yet, they could have actually involved the symbiote that was left in the last movie. I think, yeah, I think the problem for me is I want Tom Holland to have his own villain that's his villain, not because Tony so they hated Tony Stark and not from a different multiverse. So that's kind of like the only bummer I had was I kind of want Tom Holland to have his own like arch nemesis that he doesn't quite have yet. But I do get what they did with Jean Grey. It makes sense. So like I don't necessarily have a problem with what they did with Jean Grey. I have more of a problem of them not adding an actual Spider-Man villain or trying to find some way to fit him in there. But at the same time, it's not necessarily upsetting. It's just the way I thought it could have been better. Like that's what holds me back from giving it a 10 out of 10 is because there was no like arch nemesis in the movie. I feel like that's kind of like necessary for a Spider-Man film. So
Yeah, that's a good point, and I have heard like it didn't bother me as much personally, but I do know I believe it was the same for him that I told you about earlier. He didn't like the portrayal of
right.
Jean Grey. He kind of said the same thing. He's like, why is she the villain? And I mean, that's fair.
Which
It just
he's kind
again
of not.
yeah. I kind of I kind of like I think I figured out a lot of this movie before I saw it, and I remember thinking, oh, I think the Hulk's gonna turn evil because Jean Grey like I don't know. I've got kind of conclusions that Jean Grey was probably going to be the antagonist, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So for me, I guess it just didn't bother me as much as some people, but I also did think it was done really well. Giuseppe says Jean Grey has always had a dark side to her, but I wish she wasn't the main villain. Yeah, I mean honestly, and kind of to that point as well, I will say too, I think that this was definitely a teaser for an inevitable Dark Phoenix story. Like I wouldn't be shocked because we know in phase what are we even in? Phase 6, I guess. With phase 7, I think, we're gonna probably see the big crossover is gonna be the Dark
Yeah.
Phoenix storyline.
I do want to point out that the whatever comments you're posting after Giuseppe, I'm not seeing till after I say what I'm saying. I literally have notes that I have for this movie, so everything I'm saying is from the notes. So I'm not copycatting you, Giuseppe.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then he has every time I say something, Tony just says what I say. Oh yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, that's
Because I
yeah.
saw I'm like I got notes here of what I have. Now I will say because Giuseppe, he's my brother. He's the one that comments for people who are watching. Um, this is one of the first movies that he and I have actually agreed on almost everything what we liked and didn't like about it. So it's pretty funny how it's the first movie ever because that I always have back and forth with him about movies all the time. But yeah, it's one of the first movies we've actually ever agreed on. It's funny. So
That's all. First time for everything, right?
yeah.
But yeah, I guess kind of while we were on the topic of X-Men and all of that, I guess we could talk about the inhibitor. I don't know if you caught on to this, but I think
Yes.
the whole inhibitor that is going to
Yes.
be a massive player
For the
into what's going
X-Men.
to happen in the X-Men. Yeah, and
Mhm.
like I don't know if it's going to be
Agree.
Trask or Mr. Sinister. Somebody's going to get a hold of that, and I think we're going to get kind of like the Last Stand, but instead of with the medicine or pills or whatever to
Oh,
suppress their powers, it's going to be the inhibitor.
yeah. Damage Control in the Spider-Man movie technically already has the inhibitor chip because when they took Jean Grey, they kept the inhibitor chip on her. So since Damage Control already has the chip, they probably will learn how to just make more of them. So I think Damage Control might be involved, or at least they'll be the supplier for the chip for whenever they face the X-Men in the future of the MCU.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, there's so many possibilities. Like, I was actually scrolling through Instagram earlier, and somebody was mentioning that theory in the comments about how it's going to be a major factor in the X-Men movies. And someone said, what if, like, the X-Men movies, like, or the first one or whatever, it's like them kind of turning against Spider-Man because they're like, hey, Spider-Man's the one that had a lot to
Mhm.
do with the creation of this chip. And then Jean Grey's kind of the one that has to, protect Spider-Man. And I was like, that could be
Yeah.
something right there, honestly.
That'd be
Like
cool.
I would be down for that. But yeah, so I guess that's kind of all in terms of where I think, Jean Grey, Hulk Punisher, all of that's going to tie into future projects. I do want to talk about the many, many Easter eggs and nods to past Spider-Man movies. I don't know how many you caught, but there's at least two that come to mind. And one of those is the scene where he's getting the organic webbing and he walks out
Peter
on the
too.
rooftop and I'm thinking, oh, that reminds me of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in the 2002 movie when he's like, fly web, fly, and it was just really fun. And then the second one that I noticed, I'm sure you noticed this one too, the scene where Jean Grey possesses MJ and has her slowly walk off that incline. Just the way I was like, they're not going to kill off MJ. Like, But the way they did that was just shot almost identically to the way they did Gwen's death and The Amazing Spider-Man
Yeah.
2. And so I was like, is this just a really cool Easter egg, or like is she actually about to die? And of course she ends up living. But what did you think about those scenes and any other Easter eggs and nods you noticed?
Oh yeah, I think there's the podcast Escape podcast. They made a great point that when you look at a lot of the stuff in Brand New Day, it's almost like they took a lot of inspiration from the good stuff of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they just left the bad. I mean, they did have some of the bad stuff, as in like there's a lot of characters in it, but it wasn't like in Amazing Spider-Man 2. The plot is kind of it drags a little. Me personally, like a fun fact, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a top 5 Spider-Man movie for me. That is a huge hot take. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 being top 5 for me. But they took all the good stuff from Amazing Spider-Man 2 and put it in this movie. But I think they didn't do the good stuff as well, just like the Escape podcast was talking about. But I think they took a lot of inspiration from that movie, and they learned from the mistakes, or at least they learned from most of the mistakes when they made Brand New Day. So I definitely see a lot of references to inspiration from previous movies into this movie. And I think that's a good thing because that's what the fans were kind of asking for. They were like, the old movies were good, they just had some issues. So why don't you take inspiration from that and learn from the mistakes? And I think for the most part, they did a good job with that. And I will say I think they've already announced that they're already planning on working on another Spider-Man movie already. So I'm excited for that as well.
Nope, we might have lost you, Antonios.
Oh, you lost me?
Nope, there you are. No, you're here. Yeah, you
Okay.
just froze.
Okay. Where was I cut off? What
Yeah,
was I saying?
you should be good now. Yeah.
Okay. Was I cut off the whole thing, what I just said, or?
We heard like right up until the very end. Yeah, like probably the
Okay,
last
yeah.
sentence, maybe.
Then, yeah, in that case, that's what I had to say. So Giuseppe commented for the next Spider-Man
Oh,
movie, I want a Daredevil crossover. Yes, I would love that.
oh yeah, Giuseppe. Yes. I would
I
say
would love
either a
that.
Daredevil crossover, or I would love to see a Deadpool and Spider-Man crossover. But like, I also understand where in the business side of things, it'd be kind of tricky to take one of the more kid-friendly franchises and pair it with one of the more non-kid-friendly franchises. So I understand, in terms of probably the logistics and the business side of things, that might be a little iffy, but man, the 25-year-old fan in me would love that. I can't lie. But yeah, I guess one of the last big things we can talk about is the post-credit scene. There's only one at the very end of the movie, and it's a big one, but it's not a big one. It was the spider tracker that Ned had, and I guess it's like it's pointing to where you think it's Spider-Man, and then it goes like it looks like across space, and then it goes to what I think is Battle World, but it doesn't specifically say it, and it starts blinking Spider-Man. So I want to
Yeah.
know, Antonio, before I get my thoughts, who do you think this Spider-Man is, and what planet do you think they're
Okay.
on?
So there's so many different things that could happen, but I'm just gonna pick one scenario that I've recently been thinking of, and so Spider-Man is spotted in New York on the tracker. Like he's there, the dot's there. But then it says Spider-Man's has been detected again. But since there's already one detected in New York, but then they detected another Spider-Man in space, I think it's a very good chance it is Battlegrounds. But at the same time, I don't know if it's Tom Holland, because if they spotted Spider-Man in New York and then they also spot at the same time another Spider-Man in space, maybe it's Toby, maybe it's Andrew. I have a pretty good feeling it's Toby. Um, there's so many different theories, but I think I agree with you. That's probably Battlegrounds. It's just a matter of which Spider-Man is it, and I'm not quite sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was any of them.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it could literally be, I was throwing out some wild theories to someone yesterday. We were talking about it, and I said, it could be. Now, I don't think this will be realistic. I think Spider-Man 2099, because, if you've seen the
Maybe.
Spider-Verse films, which already deal with the multiverse, he was very, knowledgeable about it and whatnot. So I could maybe see that. But realistically, I would say, I'll pick like three, and I'll say most likely to least likely. I think most likely, I'll say Tom Holland just because it's a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. It said Spider-Man will return, so most likely it's probably just Tom Holland. But I also think right up with him would be Tobey Maguire, and I say that because, and for people watching, I don't know if this is true or not. I've heard some people mention the opening scene of Doomsday. So if you want to know absolutely nothing about Doomsday in case this ends up being correct, just, I'll hold up a finger and then I'll put it down when I'm done talking about it. But I don't know if you've heard this, Antonios, but apparently the opening scene of Doomsday is like Tobey Maguire's world getting eradicated by Doctor Doom. So I would say, the second most likely option is that's literally a Spider-Man getting taken from his world to Battle World. So that could be an option there. And then I would say probably the third most likely would be Miles Morales. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but again, the Spider-Verse
Could
movies,
be.
Sony's working with Disney. I know Tom Holland even said recently, I believe, that forgot if he said they're actually in the process of working on it or he just wants it to happen, but he wants Miles Morales to eventually become the new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's far-fetched, but I would say that's probably the least likely of the three.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Tom Holland has been talking about finding Miles Morales. There's a very good chance they might have already found someone and they're not telling us because they're keeping it secret for Secret Wars. But yeah, I think the other theory could possibly be that which is like a theory for Doomsday, is in the trailer for Doomsday, everyone's been talking about online. They've been talking about in Doomsday, there's that empty spot in the trailer when Thor's talking to all the new Avengers in the new Avengers Tower. So the theory could be maybe for some reason that missing person could be the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man because the incursion happened or something funky. So yeah, I honestly I feel like that I'm very highly optimistic about what they're going to do with it, but I don't know. I don't know. I honestly at this point I kind of want to be left surprised. I might even not watch if they release another Doomsday trailer. I might not even watch it for all I know. If I can control myself to not watch the trailer, just to be surprised when I go in. I already got my tickets for it, the Infinity Vision. So
Nice. Okay. Well, I have a hot take with Infinity Vision. I think it is literally just an IMAX scam. Like they're literally just going, because from what I've heard, from what I understand, Infinity Vision is
it's
it's
I
just
think it's the some Regal places that one there's a Regal where they it's I think it's like a more enhanced Dolby Atmos theater. So like the sound and the screen looks a little better. The sound's a little more enhanced. But yeah, technically it's not like it's like IMAX but smaller. Similar sound system, but the screen's not the same. So it is kind of a scam. It's just that I kind of want to get tickets as early as I could before they're like gone. Because look what happened to Spider-Man. Spider-Man's already made $1 billion. Imagine what Doomsday could do if Spider-Man could do that. Not to mention if it's Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's in that movie. That would be insane. Like people would probably pay, like they would pay just to go see Tobey Maguire in the movie. So yeah, with what happened to Spider-Man making $1 billion already, Doomsday is frightening to think what could happen on opening weekend.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think, there's always a joke like, are we ever going to get a $3 billion movie? And
Right.
I would say
Spider-Man might do it. Spider-Man might do it. Brand new day. Who
it,
knows?
it might, but I mean, you think of how many people saw Endgame and saw that movie multiple times. My only thing is like, I feel like, because even that movie, even Avatar, didn't get $3 billion. And so I think if
Yeah.
any movie could,
Endgame re-release might push it up to 3 billion when they
that
re-release
would be
all extra
interesting.
scenes.
See,
Yeah.
I do think that we could eventually get a $3 billion movie that way, like the re-releases, like even Avatar is where it is now because it's been re-released. Forgot what the last count was, like 7 to 10 times, somewhere in that range. But like a movie to just come out and make $3 billion. I mean, I'll tell you what, if any movie could, it might be either a Spider-Man movie or Doomsday and Secret Wars, to be completely honest with you. But, I think, yeah, Doomsday is going to be crazy successful. It's going to, break all the records. It almost, it is funny with Brand New Day, though, because it made me more excited, but less excited for Doomsday, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, I'm really stoked for Doomsday now, having seen Brand New Day, having seen, how good Thunderbolts was. I think Fantastic Four could arguably be a top 5 Marvel movie of all time for me. And so then you got Brand New Day. So I'm like, okay, Marvel's back. I'm ready to see what they're going to cook up with Doomsday now. But at the same time, I've really liked how the last like 2 or 3 Marvel films have been very like self-isolated. Like I can show my mom Fantastic Four and don't have to over-explain a million things that happen in other movies. Kind of the same thing with Brand New Day. Like she doesn't even have to watch The Punisher. Like if you've seen the other Spider-Man movies, you're all set. With
Yeah.
Doomsday, I'm kind of not looking forward to jumping back into all of this, all of the, multiversal this and that. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to go see that movie. I'm probably going to love said movie. It's just, my personal preferences, and I hope they do this in their inevitably post Secret Wars reboot. I just hope they focus more on really great standalone ish stories that maybe incorporate some elements from other universe or from other franchises in the universe. But, it's not like you got to watch this movie and it's just a bridge to another movie, like, certain films are. Looking at you, Quantumania. But yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
But let's
I,
see.
I am I am excited with I am excited to see what they're going to do with the extra scenes in Endgame. I'm not. I'm pretty sure it's going to be something very simple, but leading into Doomsday, giving it a credit scene or something like that to hint, probably hinting about Captain America. Like I think it's already been confirmed that it's like some of the extra scenes, like the end credit scenes, could be like Steve Rogers returning the Infinity Stones or something like that, which might have an effect in it going to Doomsday. But yeah, I'm excited for that. Um, so yeah, I'm optimistic about what's going to happen in the future of the MCU. So I'm excited to see Doomsday. Um, I think at least worst case scenario, I think it'll be just a fun action packed movie full of cameos, kind of like Deadpool and Wolverine, where the more you think about it, it's just a super funny, super fun, get these heroes together and fight a bad guy kind of movie, where the actual plot itself is very meh, nothing special, but it's so fun. And that's kind of what I want with Doomsday at the bare minimum. So make it at least fun. Make it at least fun, and I'll be satisfied coming out of theater watching Doomsday.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think, at the end of the day, even if this just is, Marvel Rivals, the movie, as I've heard some people refer to it as, I mean, at the end of the day, and I say this all the time, I'm a guy, I like to talk about film, dissect film, understand film, all of this stuff. At the end of the day, I can say a movie's objectively bad or objectively good. Like Odyssey is objectively one of the greatest films ever made, in my opinion. But, at the end of the day, no matter what it is, if you walk out of a movie, it might be a terrible film, but if you had fun watching it, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And that's always kind of what I like to remind myself and, other people as well. Giuseppe says, we've been getting one of our friends on the MCU journey to get him ready for Doomsday.
Yes,
Oh, dude, I'm
we
sure.
we
Yeah.
we are we just watched the second Avengers, so that's where we're at right now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait. We're gonna get all the movies up to Endgame. Wait to see Endgame in theaters, and then after Endgame, we're gonna show him all of the post Endgame stuff to lead to Doomsday. So that's what we're trying to do, so he can experience Endgame in the theaters first time. So which I think would be
There
amazing.
you go.
So
I can't wait to hear what he thinks about Secret Invasion when he watches that for the first time.
oh, we're not watching. We're watching the required stuff for Doomsday. The only TV show we're gonna watch is probably Loki. I think Loki's the only
Oh,
TV show. Maybe WandaVision, if we have time. If that might be important, maybe
I feel like WandaVision could be, but I don't know. Yeah, it could
could
be.
be. Yeah. Do you
Could
think
be. Yeah.
Agatha might be? I haven't watched the Agatha show. Do you think that might be important for Doom? Because there's rumors that Doctor Doom. I haven't watched the show, but I know in Multiverse of Madness. Spoilers if our friend who's watching the movies is watching right now. Um, in there's rumors that Doctor Doom has that book from Multiverse of Madness, the book that Scarlet Witch has, that's in the end of the WandaVision show. So if that's true, is there anything in the Agatha show that has to do with that book?
It's been a couple years since I've watched it, so I can't. Well, it kind of is and it kind of isn't. I mean, it's all kind of tied together with Wanda, her kids. I will go ahead and say I actually think Agatha was probably the most surprising Disney Plus show because I thought it was going to be completely terrible. I didn't think the trailers looked good at all. But then I watched the show, and after the first couple episodes were kind of what I was fearing, but then I would say from like the third episode onward, I was really getting invested. Like I don't think it's Loki. I don't think it's X-Men 97 season 1. I wouldn't even say it's Falcon and Winter Soldier level good, but it's a solid good like 7 out of 10 show in my opinion. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean I'd recommend watching it just cuz it's not, it's not a bad show. But yeah, might need to watch WandaVision for Vision Quest. Oh, that's true too. Yeah, because apparently, yeah, that's true actually. Because Vision Quest is supposed to be like the end of the Wanda trilogy or whatever they're calling it, where it's like a WandaVision, Agatha, and Vision Quest. And
Yeah.
Vision Quest, yeah, telling our friend to plug his ears, so be careful. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we'll
I
yeah, we
do.
won't talk about it anymore. Yeah.
I do
Okay.
have a question though, because in Spider-Man Brand New Day, obviously it's good. It's with Jean Grey confirms that X-Men will be in the future of the MCU, which we already knew. But who do you think would be? Because there's two characters rumored to play Magneto: Jensen Ackles and Adam Driver. If you had to choose, which one would you pick?
Jensen Ackles or Adam Driver? I don't hate Adam Driver as Magneto, but I think I would prefer Jensen Ackles,
Same.
honestly. Yeah, like I think, because I remember there was a rumor going around before they announced the casting of, I believe, Fantastic Four, and they said that Adam Driver was going to play Reed Richards, and I was like, that just sounds horrible. No, this one I'm a little more open to it, but I think Jensen Ackles would be a better Magneto, and would say I could see Adam Driver being Nightcrawler. I think that's a theory that, I've heard
Hmm.
some other people say, and I was kind of like, I'd get behind that, honestly. Like, kind of the weird. He can do weird and quirky a little bit, and kind of that,
Yeah.
not full on emo, but that kind of more depressed personality. Like he plays that really well. So I could see him being Mr. Sinister.
Yeah. What did you think of Ryan Gosling playing Ghost Rider? Because Sean Levy's directing Ghost Rider, and Ryan Gosling's also acting in the Starfighter movie, which Sean Levy's also directing. So it's pretty cool how they're getting more involved in the Disney movies. But what did you think of Ryan Gosling? Basically, because he's been talking about for years. What's your honest reaction now that it's official that he's going to be playing Ghost Rider?
Oh, dude, I think it's great. I mean, honestly, the only person they could have cast to play, I'm assuming Johnny Blaze is who they're going with that version of Ghost Rider. I think
Yeah.
Norman Reedus would probably be the only one that would be the only one that if they had cast him as Ghost Rider, I might would be more excited for. But if we can't get
I think
Norman
he's
Reedus,
a little
this
old
one,
now.
yeah, that's true. It's kind of in that Mahershala Ali Blade kind of, it's like oh,
Mhm.
he'd make a killer Blade. It's just he's too old, and I feel like that's kind of the same way with him. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, no, he's going to do a great job. I'm Sean Levy, however you say his name. I'm a little concerned just because I haven't really seen him do. Like we've seen Stranger Things. I forgot if I think he directed some episodes here and
He did.
there,
He
so
did.
he kind of knows
He
how to
did
do.
Deadpool Wolverine. I don't know if he did the other Deadpool movies, but he did Deadpool Wolverine. I think.
Yeah, I know. I know. So no, he didn't do the first Deadpool or the first two Deadpool movies. He did Deadpool and Wolverine, and then he did it wasn't a Marvel movie. What was it the Free Guy, Fall Guy with Ryan Reynolds? Where it's like
I don't.
I
I'm
call it
not
Wreck It
sure.
Ralph.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of the movie, but I know he directed that. And so I kind of know him more for his comedy style, I guess. And so I'm a little bit like, do I see him taking on I mean, you could do Ghost Rider PG-13. I don't know if they will. I mean, I think R-rated movies have proven that, there's marketability to them. So we'll say Ghost Rider is at least a hardcore PG-13. I just, I don't picture Sean Levi, the guy doing Star Wars, the guy doing Deadpool and Wolverine, doing this movie. But kind of seeing what he's done with some of the Stranger Things episodes, I mean, if we can at least get some creepy vibes, I'll be content. And
Yeah.
between you and me, I think we're definitely getting a Midnight Suns crossover movie. Like I think this next saga is going to be mutants and like the supernatural. So like your,
Yeah.
Mephisto, your Blade, probably not played by Mahershala Ali, but I think they're still going to try to incorporate that character to some degree. Ghost Rider, like I think you're going to get a lot of those as well, kind of going forward.
Yeah.
But Giuseppe says, I love Levi and Ryan Gosling for Ghost Rider. I think you'll feel better after Starfighter. I watch a guy on YouTube. His name's John Campia. He does a lot of movie talk. He's pretty close to the industry, like film industry, and he said that from what he's been hearing from like Disney insiders, they love Starfighter. Now, I also want to, I understand that, executives tend to think differently than the average fan, so we may all go see it and hate it for all we know, but it is encouraging to hear that it seems like Starfighter is apparently a really good film, and that's kind of what got him hired to be part of the Ghost Rider movie. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I honestly think, I don't know if I'd say this. I think I'm okay. I won't say I'm more excited for Ghost Rider than X Men, but I would say I'm just as excited for Ghost Rider as X Men. So I'll still be there day one. I hope it's great. Let's see. Did I miss something else up here? I don't think so. Yeah. So, I guess one other thing we can do before we head out here, I kind of forgot to mention it before we talked about the post-credit scene. I kind of want to talk about, do you think the ending of this movie with back to Spider-Man Brand New Day with Peter Parker giving Ned his, their famous handshake that they have, do you think Ned actually remembers, like, do you think the spell broke, or do you think maybe it's just him, like some memory of a past friend or something? Like, do you think, in other words, you think if and when there's a Spider-Man 5, is it going to be like Ned fully remembers Peter as Spider-Man, or is it going to be like the two of them just rekindle a new kind of friendship?
Um, I'm not entirely sure. I think it very well could. Hey, never underestimate the power of the like two close guys, like two close guys that have been friends their entire life. Never underestimate that. They can always find a way to remember. But at the end of the day, I think it's like he kind of has like he kind of remembers. I don't think his whole memory was rejogged like as soon as he did the handshake, but I think it helped. But another thing too, there's that theory where when Jean Grey, when she had that thing where everyone froze within a kilometer of where she was, because she can control the brain the way she brought back the Hulk. It might be the same way where with MJ and Ned, it might have rejogged their memories a little bit. And a good example of that is MJ went back to the rooftop that she and Peter used to go to in the previous movies, like in No Way Home, and she was holding, I think, something that the Tom Holland Spider Man gave her. So she might have so I think Jean Grey might have sort of rejogged the memories a little bit to where when he gave the handshake, it kind of gave flashbacks of memories. So it's kind of like I think it's like a thing where he has to work with him to build the memories back, not necessarily recreate new friendship. Like it kind of is, but at the same time, it's also rejogging his memory because of Jean Grey messing with their brains when she froze everyone.
I do like that. That's actually a good theory. Yeah, I definitely didn't think of it that way. I did kind of think, because going in, my theory was, I think at the end of this movie, what was going to happen was Jean Grey. I thought Jean Grey's obviously going to turn good at the end, and I think she's going to like, in the movie, it would be made clear that she was going to like kind of rejog MJ and Ned's memory, like and even watching the movie, the scene where she almost kills MJ, it's like I think she's going to make up for that by rejogging the memory. So yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that going in, but then when it didn't happen like that, I didn't really think that it might still be Jean Grey. So you make a really good point with that. Yeah. Let's
Yep.
see. Oh, I already read that one about Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that pretty much does it for the spoiler talk for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Anything else you want to add, or Giuseppe?
Um,
Sure, but also Antonio's.
I think the one thing, this is not necessarily negative, it's more of like something that I was hoping that the rumors were true for the new movie was I kind of preferred when Spider-Man got shot. A part of me wishes he just died, not because I want Tom Holland gone, but because I wanted that that rumor where like the symbiote finally finds him and like goes into his grave and resurrects him as like the symbiote Spider-Man for Secret Wars, because in the like the battleground, I think in the Secret Wars comics he has the symbiote suit. I might be wrong. I could have sworn there was something like that involved, where when he's on battlegrounds, that's when he has the symbiote suit because it makes him stronger to face the more powerful beings that he'll have to face if he's in Secret Wars, which there's a decent chance he's going to be, because they confirmed that Spider-Man will return whether it's Secret Wars or in the future. But I kind of preferred they did that, and like the end credit scene was the symbiote going down into the dirt, resurrecting him as the symbiote Spider-Man. I think that would have been, in my opinion, a better ending. But I still love the way they ended with Ned and him, like two guys who've been friends their entire lives, rejogging his memory in a way. So I don't hate it. Again, most of the things in the movie that I wish they changed wasn't because I thought what they did was bad. Or Battle World, sorry, not Battleground, Battle World. I keep thinking of the Disney Infinity game. Um, I would. It's not that I necessarily don't like what they did. I just think there were better things they could have done in the end, but not necessarily what they did was bad.
Oh yeah, I get that. And I didn't think about that theory with the symbiote, but that would have actually been really awesome. I guess the way that I would work around that is, we don't get Frank in the Spider-Man mask, waving at people outside the hospital or inside the hospital room. So I guess that's a good trade-off at the end of the day. That was hilarious scene. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, I guess, and kind of I guess last thing I'll say here, I guess before we end it, but Tom Holland, I think this movie solidifies him as my favorite live action Spider-Man. I've always said, and I've always kind of thought this too. I've always said Tobey Maguire, I think, is the better Peter Parker. I think Andrew Garfield is the better Spider-Man. He's a bit more quippy, bit more kind of energetic, for lack of a better term. And I've always kind of said Tom Holland kind of personality wise was a good mixture of both, but I think this movie just showed how much range his version of Peter Parker actually has. Like when it's an emotional scene, you feel it. When he needs to be funny, it's hilarious. He's quippy. He's just, and that's why I said I kind of want to see him interact with Deadpool, because there's so many moments in this movie, like the scene where he's trying to break in and he's like, do you, talking to the guards, and he's like, do you guys stretch and stuff like that? And I'm like, if this man and Deadpool teamed up, it would be legendary. But
Yeah,
yeah, and kind of what Giuseppe said too. Tom Holland's his favorite now. Yeah, I mean it's
yeah,
and again, I love all three, but Tom Holland, there's something special with him for sure.
yeah. I still pick Andrew Garfield as my favorite Spider-Man. Again, he gets such a bad rap because of his bad movies. They're originally actually in the MCU, they were thinking about taking Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and putting him in Civil War, which would have been really cool. But at the end of the day, I'm happy they decided to go Tom Holland route. But I put Tom Holland above Toby now. Toby, it's such a nostalgia thing for me. So it hurts me to put him in the bottom, but realistically, because of Brand New Day, I do put Tom Holland above Toby. But I still pick Andrew Garfield as my favorite Spider-Man and like Peter Parker. Well, not necessarily Peter Parker, but just overall. I still go Andrew Garfield, but if someone says Tom Holland's the best, I'm not going to argue with you. It's not like I disagree. It's more of just I like to give Andrew Garfield the credit that he deserves for the bad movies he was in, but the great performance he
Oh
gave.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I get that too, because like and it hurts me to say, because I'm literally born 2000, so when I was like 6 years old, Spider-Man 3 came out, and then I was like,
Yeah.
The Amazing Spider-Man was like maybe 2011, 12, somewhere in that range. So I was like 10 or 11 when that movie came out, and it's funny because those are the two Spider-Man that I both grew up with. Like I wouldn't really say nostalgia wise there was one that I, grew up with more than the other. But man, Tom Holland, though, as much as I hate to say it, yeah, I mean, I just think for me, he's the best of both worlds. But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with Andrew Garfield. And I think, just it was so unfair the way that when those movies came out, people, they didn't just hate the movies, they really hated on him. He just wasn't their Peter. He was too different. And, he was kind of the cool kid, which I kind of get to a certain degree. He was a little bit more, because with Peter Parker, you want to be Spider-Man, but you never want to be Peter Parker. With Andrew Garfield, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but I have heard some people say, well, who wouldn't want to be Peter Parker? The man just skateboards in public schools, gets the girl, and I kind of see what they mean by that. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, they're all amazing in my opinion,
Yeah.
and
If
we
you
all.
want if you want, I do have a ranking of all the Spider-Man movies. If you want to hear it, it doesn't.
Sure, let's hear it.
It doesn't. It does include the Spider-Verse movies. So there's 11 movies in total. 11th place is Far From Home. I I rewatched it recently with my younger siblings to show them it, and I never really liked it in the first place. And Watching again kind of solidified that. Not that I don't think any of the Spider-Man movies are bad. I just think it's the weakest. 10th place is The Amazing Spider-Man. The Golden Eye is a little funky. The movie itself is okay, nothing special. But again, don't think it's bad. Number 9's Homecoming. The problem I have with Homecoming is the same problem I have with the Batman, where it's like he just keeps losing. I get it's new, he's learning, but the moral of the hero they fall and they get back up. So if they get back up in like a sequel of a movie, that works. That's because it's a continuation of the story. But in this movie, it kind of works, kind of doesn't. So it's not that I really hate it. It's just one of the problems I have with it. Number 8 is the third Spider-Man. As a little kid, I thought it was my favorite Tobey Maguire movie. When you get older, it's like watching the prequel Star Wars. Where like they're fun, but the dialogue and the plot is a mess. Massive mess, too much going on, but it's still really fun though. Number 7 is the first Spider-Man. I like it. It's just that when I rewatched it, it does feel a little cheesy, kind of, just a little, not too much, but just a little cheesy. I love William Dafoe as Green Goblin. I just wish they did a better costume for him. Number 6 is this is probably where people go crazy. It's Across the Spider-Verse. My ultimate issue with that movie is the beginning and the end are way too long. About 45 minutes into the movie, when I first watched it, I knew Miles Morales was not meant to be it's like the Loki show. Like, he's not meant to be Spider-Man because his spider was from a different multiverse, different universe. So obviously he's not supposed to be Spider-Man. So it didn't surprise me, and it kind of annoyed me that it took forever to get to the point. But I still think it's really cool. I rewatched it recently. I liked it a lot more than I did before, but not enough to rank it up higher. Number 5 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. That's where the hot take is. I love The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It does drag sometimes, but it has, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man we've ever seen. Like the portrayal, the swinging scenes, the way he talks as Spider-Man, the costume. I think they aced Spider-Man, but the movie itself wasn't very good. Number 4 is Brand New Day, because again, it's like TASM 2, but with not having all those issues that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 had. So that's why I ranked that slightly above. Number 3 is Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire movie. It's such a classic. They do a really good job with the character development and all that. Doc Ock's great. That's basically the first. It was the first ever really good, successful, if you like superhero movie, and it was the first movie where the CGI actually looked good and presentable. That I think it won an award, if I'm not mistaken, when it came out. And then
I think you're right.
Yeah. And then number 2 is No Way Home. It's purely because the feeling I had when all 3 Spider-Men were together. I don't think nothing's ever going to top that feeling. Like when you're in the theaters and they all show up and it's like your childhood's all there together fighting the villains. Again, like I said, the plot itself, the movie itself, nothing special, nothing fantastic. But in superhero movies, I'd rather have fun, epic stuff. And if it's a great story, that's an extra positive, and that just makes it even better. But at the end of the day, it's just that was probably like the happiest I ever felt watching a superhero movie. Like that's why I love it so much. And then number 1 is Into the Spider-Verse. When I first heard they made it to the Spider-Verse, I thought it was going to be stupid because I saw a trailer for it. I thought it looked really dumb, like the humor and everything. But then I watched the movie and it was like really deep. They did a really good job portraying Spider-Man. The music's great. The animation is so cool, how it's like comic book. And I don't think anything's ever going to be Into the Spider-Verse. It's like a near perfect Spider-Man movie. So that's how I have it all ranked for my Spider-Man movies. The 2 hot takes is definitely Across Spider-Verse being farther back and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 being that high. So those are like my hot takes of Spider-Man movies. But yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I guess I'll get my ranking real quick. I'm gonna wing it. I'll go best to worst just because it's easier for me to keep up when I don't have a list.
Yeah.
But for me, number 1, Spider-Man 2. I know it's basic. It is iconic though. It has some of the best sequences, and I love how New York is like a character in relation to that, into the movie. And then I would say number two is Across the Spider-Verse. I know that might be kind of a hot take, but like, where you say it starts out slow to get to the point, that's what I love. Like, I love just seeing Spider-Man in New York, just chilling, doing everyday activities. But yeah, I mean, the back half of that movie, though, is like one of the best moments, one of the best hours, maybe, in any superhero movie. And then number three, I would say is Into the Spider Verse. Kind of what you said. It's amazing. I love the animation. The What's Up Danger scene, one of the best. Like, yes, I'm sure there's an actual word for this, but guy learns, he has powers, or guy becomes the hero, whatever you want to call it. One of the best scenes of any comic book movie. I would say fourth is Spider-Man 2002. It was one of the first superhero movies I ever watched, right up there with Spider-Man 2 and Michael Keaton's Batman. So much
Yeah.
nostalgia. And I actually, as somebody who literally learned how to read largely by reading the 60s comics, like the first like 24, 25 issues or whatever, it's so in line with those comics, and I love it. Number five, I'm going to say is No Way Home, just because it's sure it's fan service the movie, but it is so glorious. And like what you said, just seeing all the three Spider-Man together, even the way that they tie up some loose ends from both the Tobey Maguire movies as well as Amazing
Yeah.
Spider-Man, very satisfying because neither of those franchises really got a definitive ending. So number six, I'm going to actually say Spider-Man: Homecoming. This is where my Tom Holland ones might have a hot take to him,
Woo!
but yeah, I
Above
rewatched that movie with.
above
I'll
Brand New
do what?
Day? Above Brand New Day?
Well, I think so, and it's going to get even hotter of
Wow.
a take here in a second. But yeah, I just think, Homecoming, I watched that movie probably a few months ago with my mom for the first, it was her first time watching it. I had just forgotten how deliriously entertaining that movie was. Yes,
It is
yes,
entertaining.
if you watch it now. Yeah, and I mean, like, watching it through the 2026 lens, like all the ways they have to shoehorn in an Avenger reference every 5 seconds, like, hey, look, mom, we're in in an MCU movie. Like, yeah, it feels a little derivative after a while, and it kind of wears off the novelty of it. But I'm a sucker for high school dramedies, like the Ferris Bueller's Day Off, that kind of
Oh, I
stuff.
love that.
So yeah, for me, it's just that it's that kind of movie for me. And then number seven, I might have. Well, actually, no, I'll switch it. I'll say The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Great movie. Yes, it's overstuffed. Yes, the plot's a little bit of a mess, but man, the stuff that does work in that movie is some of the best of any Spider-Man movie. And I loved the Electro villain. I don't care what anyone says. He was awesome. The theme was awesome. Like, yeah, just really good movie all around. And then number eight, I'm gonna put Spider-Man. I'll put Spider-Man Brand New Day as number eight. I may change my mind. I kind of go back and forth between TASM 2 and Brand New Day right now. And Brand New Day might move up higher, honestly. But I won't go into details. We already know kind of where I stand on that movie. But
Yeah.
yeah, really good stuff. Number nine is going to be Far From Home. I actually really love that movie, and I think Mysterio is like a top 10 villain in the MCU. Like, and I think, not to get like crazy political or anything like that, but I think in today's world of AI and of, things being so easy to manipulate the masses, just I love everything Mysterio stands for now. Well, not, literally, but in the context of that movie, because it's a manifestation of everything we've seen just a few years later, and, AI, surveillance, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of one of those movies that for me, yes, it feels a lot like Homecoming, but I think the themes of it are just so much more prevalent, and it's kind of aged like fine wine for
Mhm.
me. But number 10, I'm gonna say, let me see which ones I haven't done yet.
Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing
Um,
Spider-Man are the two left.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, so Spider-Man 3, again, like you, I don't think there's a bad Spider-Man film, so I still really like this movie. There's a lot of nostalgia for it as well, but I don't like Ozempic looking Venom. He's not, muscular. He's not the Venom from the comics.
That's
But,
I've never heard that, but that's good. That's actually really good. That's the way to describe it.
yeah, I just, something about it. I just, even as a kid, I was like, Mommy, why is Venom, like this? Like,
Oh.
but, it's just that kind of stuff. But obviously, it's like the most memeable Spider Man movie. So it's great for that, even if it is a little, kind of goes off tangents that it doesn't fully explore. But then last place for me is The Amazing Spider-Man. I would still say it's a good movie, maybe even a really good movie. Only reason it's last place is because the Uncle Ben, it's like right up there with Batman's parents dying. Like we've seen the origin story so many times. And while they try to do something kind of different, they try to make it not identical. It's still like the first 45, 50 minutes of that movie. It seems like a not as original or good version of what we got in the 2002 one. But once the lizard comes on the scene, I mean, it gets a lot better for me, and it's still an enjoyable film. But I think it is by far the one that I probably have the most issues with. Giuseppe says, whoa, Brand New Day is way better than Homecoming. I just rewarded Homecoming. It's good, but Brand New Day is almost perfect. I see what you mean, man. And honestly, like I said, if I really got to rewatch some of these movies again, but that's kind of my, just off the cuff ranking. I'm sure Brand New Day will probably
I
move up another notch or two, but
Yeah, I would say Brand New Day. I wouldn't necessarily call it almost. It's kind of almost perfect, but it's almost perfect because there's like two things that should have changed, but those two things make so much of an impact in the movie that it's easy to say it's almost perfect when you can point out the issues, but when it comes to the movie itself, you kind of have to make some readjustments to fix that. Like the two problems, like which I know Giuseppe, like he can correct me if I'm wrong, is the no big villain, Brand New Day, but also them being way too many of those too many characters in one movie thing. Like all those villains in the beginning of the movie, kind of a little. It's kind of works, kind of a little too much. So, but yeah, the biggest issue is the villain thing. But not having a villain in a movie, it might be one thing to change that can make it perfect, but that's a very big thing you got to change to make it perfect because you got to find a way to take a villain and work it into the plot of the movie. So it might be one thing to fix, but at the same time, that one thing needs to be fixed is a very major important part of the plot you'd have to change, if that makes sense.
yeah, I get what you're saying for sure. But yeah, let's see. Oh, I read that one. Only thing about Brand New Day is the villain. Yeah, I mean, it is weird to have not a concrete villain, but I think, again, just going in, I expected that was going to be the route they went with. So for me,
Yeah,
I think I actually guessed like 85% of that movie. But the way it all comes
you
together
did.
was
You
really
did.
nice. No one I can blame but myself for, being too smart. But yeah, let's see if there's nothing else we got here. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, I guess unless you have anything else to add, I'll go ahead and end it here. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed talking some spoilers and hanging out with all of you guys. But yeah,
Sure.
be sure to check out both Giuseppe and Antonio's have a YouTube channel, Dynamite Duo Sports. I hope I'm saying that right. But yeah, great stuff on there. A lot of football talk. I guess that'll probably be picking up a lot more with football literally just around the corner.
Yeah,
But
we're gonna see if we can work something out because there's been some scheduling conflicts, but hopefully we can get something together before the season starts.
oh yeah, I got you. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to it for sure. But yeah, just for anyone watching this video later on, just be sure to let me know in the comments down below what you all thought of Spider-Man Brand New Day. I understand wanting to be respectful, but this is a spoiler review, so just whatever's on your mind about the movie, just put it in the comments down below. And as always, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And I'll catch all you guys later. Take care, man.
See you, Nathan.
Let's see it.